this extraordinary room, in this extraordinary hotel, in this magnificent national park. I will be talking a little bit more about this magnificent national park in the second half. And now to bring us here, literally right here. In early 1864, a few very wise people, and last night I misspoke because I forgot, they were not all just men. There was one woman involved, and I forgot about that, Jessie Benton Fremont, began talking to several people about, you know, there is this place, this incredible valley of the Yosemite, and it's absolutely spectacular, but there are people grazing sheep up in the Tuolumne Meadows, there are people grazing sheep in the valley, there are problems with people simply laying claims to it, there are people mining, and in fact people may not realize that, but that was one of the very early reasons for strife in 1851. When miners came into the valley, and a couple of them were actually killed by the native people living here. Well, in 1864, it was decided that we really needed to do something about that. And so for the very first time in history in any nation, a government decided that there were some lands that were just so incredibly special that they must be preserved for the people's enjoyment for all time. And so a relatively short bill was written by our junior California state senator, Senator Kness, for whom you may know we have a P named. He took this relatively short bill to the Congress, to the Senate. At the time, this nation was literally tearing itself apart. At that time, nobody knew if there even would be a United States of America in the future anytime. There was no clear writing on the wall whatsoever. Sure, the tides had changed a little bit since the Battle of Gettysburg in July of 1863, but in early 1864, nobody knew what was going to happen. But still, these very, very brilliantly thinking individuals took this bill to the United States Senate, where it passed handily, and then it went to the House, where it passed handily, until finally, on June 30th of 1864, it was signed, quietly, with no ceremony, by President Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah.
And in that stroke of the pen, he did something that had never been done before. He preserved the Yosemite Valley and the Mariposa Grove of giant sequoias, and that bill said, the state of California must take care of them. So not only had they set the land aside to be saved, they also assigned the responsibility to a party. And this place was born. That idea later gave rise to the National Park Service, which we will be celebrating 2 years from now for its 100th anniversary. But the national parks were established in 1872, not with Yosemite, but with the very first United States National Park, Yellowstone. Yosemite had to wait until 1890, and guess what? Next year we will be celebrating the 125th anniversary of that. Incredible event this was. To take me right back home, a couple of years ago I agreed that I would write 4 pieces for these very special anniversaries. And last October we kicked off the very first of them with my piece, Wilderness, Our Necessary Refuge, which paid homage to the 50th anniversary of the Wilderness Act, which also takes place this year. I had to get a leg up, I had to get the piece done early. So, that one is done. You will now hear the second performance only of my new piece, Hope in a Time of Tragedy. We premiered it last night in Mariposa, but just between we few and me, it means so much more to be doing it here.
Yeah.
Just a couple of things I want to prep you on, just so you'll have a clue of what to listen to in a new piece. There are some brief notes in the program. There are interminable notes on our website. I'm sorry, I tend to start writing and don't stop. So if you want to read the 10,000-page essay on all the 10,000 words, sorry, it's on our website. Although that gives me an idea. Just a few things to listen for. The piece begins very quietly with solo flute playing very softly, an A flat, a B flat, and E flat. Those notes spell A. That motif is very important and will recur throughout the piece. And in fact, just a few bars later, they actually musically, cryptologically, musically play Abraham. And that word only appears once.
Wow.
Then, nearly right off the top, you hear a motif that you can see on the cover of the program. And that is the motif that I came up with, which to me is the essence of at least the tunnel view of Yosemite Valley. And it mirrors that horizon a bit. There are two notes always played together in thirds, and those are the sky meeting the earth. That motif begins there and then resurfaces here and there. Well, there's about a minute of introduction, and then you get a very loud, bombastic military march representing the Union. That eventually gives way to a much more quiet, melancholy Song of the South, call it. A piece representing the genteel old antebellum South, the South that may or may not have even existed, but the South that I think we would all like to imagine was before the war. That piece is heard, and then we get the development section in which bits and pieces, motifs from both of the North and the South begin to collide. And so they get into more and more of a fervor. It gets very, well, you'll hear the piece, until finally it blows itself out, and from that arises the Yosemite motif.
Yeah.
Quietly at first. So it builds and builds and becomes what I feel, and I hope, is an anthem celebrating this place.
Yeah.
And so with that, hope in a time of tragedy.